right, MemberDev Insiders. Today we have Isaac Kuhlman from Real Coaching, one of our favorite clients. We've been working with Isaac and his team for about 3 years now, and they are one of the more successful and just progressive clients we have that works in the coaching space. So today what we're going to do is we're going to have a very casual but guided conversation with Isaac, just to kind of tell us the real coaching story, talk a little bit about different challenges with coaching, talk about online versus offline. Amazon's a big part of their model, so he'll probably speak to that later. And then we're just going to see where things go. So Isaac, thank you for carving out time. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely, man. I am excited. We should have done this a long time ago. So I will give you the floor just to introduce yourself in whatever way feels possible. There's no right answer. That's why I didn't tee anything big up. Just give people your quick backstory and then a little bit about Real Coaching.
Yeah. So I first started out with like $2-3 million in the bank. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't. So how it worked out was basically I started in retail. I worked grocery and retail stores from high school until basically I stopped, doing it because I hated it or just didn't want to do it. The most recent retail job I had was actually working at an indoor go-kart facility here in Las Vegas. I was the operations manager there, pretty much in charge of everything. They didn't have, there was the CEO is actually my wife's godfather. And it was actually funny because I met my wife there and he didn't want me to date her, and I'm older than her. So he was like, "You're not good enough. Nobody's good enough for her." And basically told me I needed to get a new job. But instead, I just showed him the true value of keeping me around and how much money I could make him and all this other stuff and how good at everything I was. And I was okay. Like I would have been okay leaving the job too. But in the end, we kind of resolved everything. We're actually pretty good friends now. We go golfing and stuff like that. But at that position, at the operations management position, I started to learn a lot of things about metrics, understanding what comes in the door, what you need to convert, all this other stuff that nobody ever pays attention to in their business. Like nobody, literally, you talk to most business owners, they have no idea how many people come in their door, how many people come to a website, how many people are converting on everything. And that's like the lifeblood of everything. And if you don't believe me, go find the most successful people and ask them, what's the lifeblood of your business? And they'll say the data. It's almost guaranteed that any business will say that. Totally. And so what you need to do, first of all, is understand your ideal client, which we'll get into a little bit more when I talk about some strategies and stuff as well. But then understanding how they operate. And that's the key fundamental shift I had when I worked at this go-kart facility. I asked my wife's godfather at the time, the CEO, I said, "Brad, do you think people like go-kart racing?" He's like, "Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I started this business. Why would you even ask such a crazy question?" I was like, "Well, because it seems like if you like go-kart racing, you'd come in to do just more than one race, right? Like you walk into a go-kart facility, you want to do like 3, 4, 5 races." He's like, "Yeah, of course. Like that's the best part of it." And I was like, "Well, our metrics show that 99% of people only buy one race and then leave." And he was like, "Really?" I was like, "Don't you think that's odd? Like, why would that happen?" So I started to dig into it, started to do some investigation. Turns out when people walk in the door, the customer service representatives, their general speaking habit was to say, "Welcome to the facility. Can I get you in a race today?" And just by saying that single race,
right,
putting them in that mindset of let's get into one race. And then you only have the option of offering them one race. So basically you're like, "Hey, they're like, how much is it?" I'm like, "Oh, for a single race, it's $20 or whatever it is." And they're like, "Well, that's kind of expensive for a single race." But they didn't come here to do one race. Imagine like you go into a go-kart facility, you want to spend an hour and a half in there, have a good time. That's what you want. You don't want to go for one race, spend 20 minutes in there and leave. Like that's the drive down and back. Like that's ridiculous. Totally. So I just started telling people, all right, the customer service representatives, I was like, tell them this when they walk in the door: "Welcome to the facility. Can I interest you in a 3-race package today?" That was our highest thing. So it was like our upsell, right? But if they say no to the 1 race, you can't upsell them to the 3 race.
Right.
But if they say no to the 3 race, you can downsell them to the 1. So it's like a smarter like upsell strategy. In that manner, just by having that mindset shift and that verbal shift of greeting the customer, we went from never having a profit at that facility to having profit every single month we did that. No. And I don't mean like a slight profit. We were losing $2,000 to $3,000 every month that facility was ever open.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we would never make less than $3,000 in profit per month. And that was after all expenses, payroll, utilities, everything. So I started doing this. At
Wait,
one point,
one second though. How old were you, or what point in your career were you at that role?
I was so at that point, I would have been, I was about 30, 31 years old. So,
okay. So and the reason I asked that question, Isaac, and I apologize for interrupting.
No, it's okay.
This is good stuff, is that when you talked about business metrics, right? KPIs, data points, 100% agree. And interestingly enough, when my very first business mentor years ago, where I was just at that similar age, coincidentally, is when I first understood the value and just the necessity of having a business dashboard, which again is the single most important asset in me just knowing like what is the status, the P&L, all the good stuff, the business stuff with MemberDev and the other businesses I've been a part of. So I think that is a nice piece of gold for the audience to just like, if you have no understanding of your data and you've never heard of what a business dashboard is, that's the starting point.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, if you're taking payments through your MemberDev platform, you have business dashboard there that you can at least get some data. So
thank you. You're right.
If you're doing that, that's a good idea. If you're taking payments through like check and then cashing it yourself or cash or whatever, if you're not doing it electronically, you're probably losing out on a lot of information about your customers that you would know, like customer lifetime value, all these other things, right? These are actual important things. I haven't even got to that part of the metrics yet. That's like deep level understanding, but at least at the base level, know how many people show up to your site, how many people are like looking to buy, how many people book appointments, how many people actually end up paying you money. That's like the basics. Like that's your traffic and conversion kind of stuff. You need to know that stuff because at some point you're going to find out that whatever your process is of greeting that customer, and this is the greeting, right? So my greeting was change it to the 3 Grace package on your page. Maybe it's instead of book a single session, maybe it's book a chat. So a free chat. And then in that chat, instead of saying, hey, can we get you in one session? Maybe it's like, hey, I'd like to get you into a series of sessions over the next 2 months. We'll do 4 sessions. So instead of just saying, hey, can I get one session? Talk about 4 sessions over the next 2 months or whatever, right? So that's where you start. You don't start with one session. Hey, I'd like to do a session after this call. That's not going to help you make that customer really trust you because like that chat or that consultation that you might have in the first place should be enough for them to trust you, for them to either buy or not. Whatever you say in that consultation also can be optimized. And this is why data is important because people are like, well, just knowing the data, that doesn't change anything. You're absolutely right. But knowing how you can change the data by changing what you do at each stage is how you understand how you can actually make more money and actually do things more effectively. So for example, if in that consultation, you never offered a follow-up session and never asked them to pay you any money or asked if they would like to join anything, your chances of ever getting them to buy something from you is almost zero.
Right.
But if you give them some sort of offer after a free consultation, you at least have a chance to extend that relationship. And the thing here is I don't like to talk about this as a money transactional thing. They came to you for help for whatever reason that you are a person of a business, right? All businesses provide some sort of thing that solves a problem for somebody else. So all you have to do in your head is think, how can I offer this person a solution to that problem long-term? And if you start thinking in that, how can I help this person long-term? You're going to start to realize that they will be willing to actually give you the money to have you help them long-term. So you're offering solutions to a problem. And I know most people don't want to hear that because they're like, well, maybe my product or service doesn't actually solve a problem. It absolutely does. Just think about what it does. I sell an ice scraper on Amazon. Everybody's like, well, that doesn't solve a problem. Well, have you ever been freezing your butt off trying to scrape the windshield off your car, right? The ice off your windshield? You're freezing cold. You don't want to be out there. The problem is the most ice scrapers don't work very well. So you're out there way too long. Your hands are freezing, or you have to use a credit card or a broken ice scraper or whatever. And it's just not fun. Get a good quality one, and you're actually saving them time outdoors freezing, and you're actually making that job a lot easier. So even something as stupid and simple as an ice scraper actually can be solving a real world problem for many people and have an impact on their lives, as little as it is. That's why you have a business or service.
Absolutely. Does that segue into how you started Reel, or what you did before Reel? Did you actually sell ice scrapers?
Yeah. So funny story. Obviously, it was supposed to be a 5-minute backstory, but we're kind of going into some
Yeah,
strategy stuff in the middle of the story. But
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah. So basically, I started there, was working at the go-kart facility, found out new ways to actually make it profitable. At that same time, I was working there. I actually met a guy who was selling on Amazon. And the only way that I met him was because I saw that he had raced before, because he was better than most people who come in. And I mentioned, as he got out of his car, I was like, hey, do you actually want to learn how to be faster, race the track better? And he was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, well, obviously, why wouldn't you? So I pulled out a little whiteboard and drew a map of the actual track, and told him where he actually needed to hit the brake and what part of the turn he needed to hit the apex. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, you don't brake, that slows you down. I was like, no, actually, sliding around the corner takes off all your speed. So if you just hit your brake before, get through the turn, you'll actually have the speed on exit, and you'll keep that speed. So he was blown away. He was like, all right, get me in another 3 races. The next race he went on, he was actually, his slowest lap from that next race was faster than his fastest lap from the previous race.
No kidding.
So he was like, all right, I'm hooked. So like, he just started buying up memberships. We actually became friends. And he was doing cell phone accessories on Amazon. And he was like, well, this year, I'm doing really well. I'm gonna make 7 figures in sales. But I'm kind of burning out, because he'd done that for like 9-12 months at that point. But also he'd been running some other similar businesses in Australia, and he just was kind of burnt out on that. So he's like, I'm looking for somebody to kind of help me. Are you interested? And I was like, well, maybe. I don't really know anything about what you're doing, but as long as there's some sort of like level of introduction of learning and training, I'm good with that. Mm-hmm. But, I can't take a smaller salary than I'm taking now. So we'll have to talk about that. And he's like, okay. So he showed me around, kind of showed me what he was doing, showed his little tiny operation. It was basically in his house. He had like a customer service rep on the computer, just doing phone calls and emails from there when they needed it. I was like, all right, cool. So he was like, we're going to get an office. We'll hire some actual people. We'll build this out. And he's like, I want you to run the office and run the brands. And I was like, all right, sounds good. So we started there. The very day before I was supposed to start, his account that was doing $300,000+ a month got shut down. Ooh. And so I was like, well, I just quit my job. Now I'm out of another job in like less than a week.
Man.
And I was like, that sucks. But the next day he came in, we were talking, because he actually messaged me or called me, or I can't remember, on that Sunday night. He's like, yeah, our accounts just got shut down. We have no income right now. I was like, that sucks. That's pretty tough. So basically what that meant is we had to start from zero.
Yep.
I had to learn how to do, like, it would have been easy to get on a ship that's sailing and just steer it. It would have been very easy. I could have probably just done that forever. Right. And there's no real critical thinking. Like, I mean, I wouldn't like to do that. I'm just saying anybody could do that.
Sure.
But the best part was we had a sinking ship. It's at the bottom. We got to like dig it back up, rebuild it, and then set it back out to sail. So that's pretty much what we had to do. We had to remove $90,000 units worth of inventory from Amazon. That was $45,000 right there.
Wow.
It took us like 4.5 months to repackage it and ship it all back in. And basically that was the entire summer, because that happened in April, and we were sitting there in Las Vegas outside repackaging stuff as they're coming in off of trucks, loading them, and just sweating all the time. But then we basically had to do most of the stuff on Amazon from scratch, and then also launch new products as well. So we got a really good learning about how to do this process in a very short period of time, because we had to resurrect the brand, and then also grow it at the same time in 8 months. So that brand was doing 300,000 in April, then basically zero or very little. I think it was at like, maybe, I won't say zero, because it's more than most, but it was like 50,000 in like maybe June. So we went from like 25 to 50,000. By December, we were doing $500,000 in a 30-day period. So $500,000. And that was the best month that we had, but we kept doing, multiple hundreds of thousands, and had products that were selling 1,000 units a day on certain days, and doing really well. Basically then fast forward, we started finding that we had lots of people asking us, how do you run this business?
Yep.
And that was when we decided to do a training program, and it was called Sourcing Profits. Mm-hmm. So sourcing profits was essentially, how do you get products from China or Asia, manufacture them with your own brand and sell them on Amazon, kind of start to finish. But there was, some of the marketing stuff wasn't in there because there was another course out there called Amazing Selling Machine that we knew those guys. I was one of my first jobs in that was to help run their products as well. So we didn't want to compete with them. We just wanted to supplement that. And so we knew that the sourcing and the product development stuff wasn't as heavy on their side. So we kind of developed that. That program ended up doing 7 figures in about 9 months. But I wasn't a business partner. I was like an author that got a little piece of the, what do you want to call it? Like the royalties. Mm-hmm. So I made more money from that than I probably ever made from anything that I ever sold in my life. And it was a decent year, but at the same time, it showed me that no matter what I do, and it showed me the same thing from the other businesses that I've ever been in, no matter what I do, I can make people tons of money, but I'm only going to get a small piece unless it's actually mine.
Sure.
So that's when I said, okay, look, I actually processed out my entire role at that company with him and said, it's all in the Philippines. Like you're paying me for 6 hours of work, but you're paying me, $70,000 a year or whatever it was at the time. It's like, so he's like, so what are you saying? I was like, so I think you should stop paying me and I'll just go my own separate way, and you'll save that money. You put it back in your business and you can grow it, and I'll go off and grow my own business. And had no idea what I was going to do. But then we decided like 2 weeks later that we were going to go to Australia together for 4 months and just consider our options. Mm-hmm. And so we did. Me and my wife and that guy all went to Australia and just kind of hung out for 4 months, but really decided what we're going to do. And I basically said, I'll start my own Amazon businesses. We had this idea that we were going to do these coaching things where we were doing workshops across the world. So we did that. It's kind of like a world tour of six cities across the world. And that was fun, but that was only for a summer. It was 6 weeks long, and that did really well. We were all happy. Then we kind of all just went our own separate ways. And that's when we'd met Kirsty a couple months before that. And that's when we developed the workshop idea. And then Kirsty and I wanted to keep doing the coaching, and I wanted to obviously develop my own Amazon brands, which I've done. And yeah, so that basically was the generation or the origin of how we became a coaching company and how I ended up doing my own Amazon businesses.
Very cool.
Long story short, or long
no,
story long.
That exactly. And I'm tempted to ask more questions there, but what I want to thank you for that, because I didn't know a lot of this. What I would like to, I want to get into the coaching, because coaching's huge for our audience. I think there's an eruption in coaching right now, especially with the pandemic, as we record this. And so just tell us now, so everyone has context. Clearly you have an entrepreneurial background, very experienced. Tell us about Real today, or even just like, tell us about Real today, and just however you want, just where it is financially, the system, the people you're coaching it through, and be as detailed as you want. But I think it'll be helpful because we have a lot of people who are aspiring coaches or are coaches and just have no idea how to navigate the online world. Like, forget about Amazon for a second, which is a big thing we'll probably talk about, but they're just like scraping, saying, hey, I'm a personal trainer, or I'm a business coach. I've done a few things and now I need to get online. And I feel like that's where you can add a lot of value. So tell us a little bit about Real, the coaching model, where the business is, and I'm sure it'll inform the rest of what we discuss. Yeah.
So what we used to think in Real was that you could only do a program in a chronological order where everybody starts at one time and progresses towards an end goal at the same time. And that made a lot of sense to us because, it's kind of like going to school. You have a course, you complete it, and then everybody kind of is at a very similar stage, but not necessarily all exactly the same stage. Well, we had a complete overhaul of that concept and thought, you know what, maybe people don't need to jump in at the beginning, and maybe they can jump in towards the middle, and maybe they can jump in at the end. Wherever they actually are currently, they can probably do this. So we kind of changed how we thought about our program. We didn't really even have to change our training videos. We just had to change the way that people entered into the program. So instead of doing like every 3 months, we would do a launch and try to bring in 30 to 35 people. We actually then started doing an evergreen model. Now we're doing it every single month. We went from doing about $150,000 every 3 months. So if you multiply that by 4, it's about 600,000. We would supplement that with some other things that would go on. So, our best year in revenue was around $850,000
Mm-hmm.
previous to this year. Well, we started doing the evergreen model about, I want to say, not quite a year ago, but about 9 to 10 months ago. Every single month, well, not every single month, but on a consistent basis, we hit 6 figures every single month. And the best part is we started putting out payment plans. So we actually have, like, for example, like January of next year, we already have like a base of like $50,000 revenue booked for that if payments go through, right? So now what we do is we stack on the upcoming months and it becomes like a progressive. So say if we did $150,000 last month, but some of those payment plans are still out there for the next 8 to 10 months, and then we do another $150,000 next month, it would be on top of that. So now it's a progressive. So the best part about this model is that people can come in at their position. We can coach them at that point because we know exactly where people are. We don't have to change anything about our model other than we just have 2 calls per week, or it's actually 3 because there's a question call like an office hours, but there's 2 calls on the same day. People pick which one they want to be on for whatever point they're in. And that's all we did. And obviously the videos, they go through the videos as they need them. And we coach them specifically. We still keep our intakes relatively intimate. Like we don't do more than 30 clients or 35 clients a month.
Right. Okay.
We try to keep it kind of that. So that way we can help them at that level, at an intimate level. Now we have added coaches and we've done this, but instead of doing 30 people over 3 months and only getting that, we get 30 people a month. So we've just tripled that, right? So like our mindset shift was going from only doing quarterly launches or maybe doing 5 launches a year or something like that to we don't have to do launches. We just bring people on and we just go out and create I guess it's essentially it's a sales funnel. I don't like that term because that implies that we're just trying to sell stuff, right? We basically went out and figured out our ideal client even better than we thought we knew before. We understand their pain points. We're trying to just give them the solutions. Like, do you struggle with this? Here's the thing that we're going to help you with. And so we do this on a monthly basis and recurring, and we can bring in people more at a higher scale now than we could before because we systemize these processes. And I know that's literally one of the upcoming questions is what are some essential systems and stuff? But essentially, if you just think about where you are in your business, how can you take yourself out of it and put 10 other people in there to do the exact same job 10 times? That's how you systemize stuff. So you have to write out things that you want done exactly right. And you and I know this is part of even just you and I communicating with each other. It's like, here's a document that shows exactly how to do things. Like, yeah, because I'm not going to sit there and try to figure out the platform myself. But if you show me how to create a module or a module section or whatever, I'll just go look at Ollie's document and this is exactly how I do it. So I take that and I don't create these things anymore. We have another person in our business that actually does it. His name's Robert. So I'm like, hey, Robert, we got an upcoming coaching class coming up. We need to create the modules, the sections, all this stuff. And he takes Ollie's SOPs, the standard operating procedures. He takes Ollie's stuff and he actually goes and does it. And I don't have to do that anymore. So just getting these things in there. But here's the best part. When we create these documents for ourselves internally about us selling on Amazon, we then actually can share that with our clients on how they can actually use that for their own business so that they don't have to do it in their business. So for example, how do you create a promotion on Amazon? I want to do a 10% discount code for my product. If you buy 2 of my product, I'd like to give my customer 10% off. Well, fancy enough, we've done that before. We created a document that shows exactly how to do it and put it into our resource vault. So everybody who ever becomes a client has that document that they can say, hey, you know what? I don't even have to do it myself anymore. I can take this exact same document and have a virtual assistant in the Philippines create my promotions for me from now on. Same thing with my metrics tracking, same things with customer service, pretty much anything in your business that you've ever done repeatedly. Write that down as a process, exactly how you do it and how you want it done to the best of your ability, and then give it to somebody else.
Definitely, man. Yeah. This is awesome. And I want to go back for a second because you mentioned something about your evergreen model. And also for people, just to quickly reiterate, you coach people who grow Amazon businesses, who are selling things through Amazon. And what I think was fascinating about that is that like there's probably a natural tendency, which is why you and Kirsty originally said, oh, we've got to start with 3-month sessions. We got to take everyone through, and we got to do another one and take everyone through. And I feel like this is how a lot of coaches, fitness programmers, people who work with groups of people think. Whereas you flipped it on the script, from what I understand, and said, it's going to be 30-day blocks. People can come in. There's a broad range from starter to mid to even more advanced sellers that will come in. We'll meet them where they're at, and we're just keeping things moving, right?
Yeah.
So you have so much more momentum.
Yeah.
That
our conversations don't change much between somebody who's brand new to somebody who's, because everybody has fundamental issues with their business, but they might be working on something different. So if you're working on this type of thing, like marketing, go to this call. If you're working on brand or product development, go to this call.
Right.
And that's all we did.
Excellent. Okay. And then, so before we talk about, I want to talk about some like challenges of coaching, because you guys have done different experimentation and you have a more dynamic model now. When you talk about systemizing things, I think this is an interesting topic, because you either don't systematize and then you're just in your business all the time, right? Or you start systematizing and you start training the muscle, or what you just described and what I felt from the way you said it is that your business is pretty systematized. We're like, there's docs, there's playbooks, et cetera. And even MemberDev, like we're getting there. But the question I want to ask you, because this is actually a personal question, is like, there are some things I find, especially in a technical business. So we both run technical businesses, that I'm like, man, this is hard to playbook. Or have you ever been writing a playbook and I pause because I'm like, I don't know how to explain this. And sometimes I'll try to record a loom. But I think the question I'm asking you is that, aside from like the things that you need to do to grow the business, like business owner responsibilities, what are some things you found that are challenging to systematize? Like, have those hit you where you're like, ooh, like this one? Because I've personally, the context for that question is, there's been some times where like I have fear of letting go, because I'm like, I don't know if I can explain this process and someone's going to fuck it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's the best part. So a lot of the times it's like the creative stuff that you can't systemize as easily.
That's
so
good.
It's like, for example, like we teach people how to write really good bullet points in their Amazon. So that way, on their listings, so that way people can convert more sales. We show them how to write, create great images and stuff like that. But we're not going to do that for them. We're just going to give them the ability to show them exactly how it's done. So there are technical things or creative things that you feel like maybe don't translate as well directly to a document. But here's what you do. You do it anyway. You create that document or that video anyway. You give it to somebody and see how well they actually perform the actions.
See if it breaks. Yep.
So it's just a test. And if you give it to enough people, you'll start to find little pieces that you can then fix the flaws in. And one of the things that, number of clients we've coached, it's thousands now. And if we'd only done like 5 people, we wouldn't know where all the fixes are, right? But because we've done so many, we know how to kind of fix all the little cracks. And there's still people, people come in all the time like, I just don't get it. There's something about it that just doesn't fire for me.
Right.
So then we go back and go, okay, well, is there a better way to explain this? Are we over explaining something? Is it too complicated because we're trying to make it so explanatory? And that's one of the issues that you'll have. If there's a way to figure out in any business, the simplest way to explain and do something, that's generally not only the best thing to do, but the best way to be able for everybody to understand it. So when we talk about bullet points, I always say like benefits first. Benefits are like, how does this make their life better by using that product? Not by buying it, but by using it. So an ice scraper, the first benefit in my bullet points is stop freezing your butt off.
Yeah.
Because in their life, that's the best benefit they can have is stop freezing their butt off by scraping their windows so slow. So that's what we talk about. If you can just say, think about the benefits and get people's brain to fire in that capacity, even creative things can be solved in an easier way. Now, most people just resist creative thoughts. I don't know why. It's like people don't want to think creatively. Some people are very attuned to that, but some people are like, I'd rather just like have a template and fill out a template, like ad lib style where like you just put in an adjective and it fills in something. It's like a puzzle, right? That doesn't really work because that's not how people speak. That's not how people think. That's not how people shop. That's not how people feel or relate to anything. if you can't unlock a little bit of that creative side in a lot of ways, it doesn't take much. But once you unlock a little bit of that creativity, if you have the right coach and the right system or the right strategy, you'll be able to unlock that easier. So again, how do you systemize that stuff? Just do it. It could be terrible the first run.
Yeah.
Give it to somebody and they'll be like, step 3, they're already stuck. And they're like, something's missing here. I don't know where to go after this. And they go, oh, because I forgot to actually tell you that there's an extra step in there. And then you kind of just do that. So just keep giving it to as many people as you can, or as many people as it takes, and see how many times it breaks, and then fix each time it breaks.
I like that. So you battle test the playbook or the SOP.
Yep.
You avoid not avoid, but caution things that require creativity. I agree 100%, because you can't tell someone how to be creative. That has to come from within. The other thing,
you can inspire it, but you can't make it happen.
Precisely. You can inspire it, but you can't make it. And the other thing that comes to mind that I've had some success with is actually co-authoring playbooks with team members, like in the spot. So like we've been on calls before, or especially if we're talking about a new process or system, I'm like, let's spin up a doc. One of us is going to type, the other catches the blind spot. Let's get this V1 in place. And then at some point, what we're trying to get better at present is like updating playbooks. Cause it's like one thing if you get this whole archive and like, cool, this is rocking. But I'm starting to learn that when you embrace the true systematized playbook methodology, you kind of need someone to be like, at least at some cadence, to be like, are these updated? What needs to get, because otherwise they get a little outdated.
That 100% is the biggest challenge of archiving this stuff. Yeah. If you do it on something like Evernote or Google Docs, where you can at least change it and update it live, so that way people can have it instantly, instead of like doing it on a Word doc and then having to change it, save it, print it, whatever. That's easier. And that's what we usually do, is like live docs, like Google Sheets and Google Docs, because we also have spreadsheets that we need to update a lot as well. But yeah, sometimes, we only really know if something's out of date if somebody comes to us, because we have like hundreds, literally 150 plus in our Amazon seller coaching. And then behind the scenes for our own company, we probably have 100. So it's like,
totally,
that's a lot of work to go through and try to update them manually each time. Just even going through and reading them, it takes a long time. But if somebody actually says, hey, you know what, something's not right here, then this is one that you can actually work on. So again, the more people you kind of have involved doing the things that are actually in there, then the more times that you'll be aware of the issues.
Yeah, we're big GDocs over here. There's actually a SaaS called Trainual that we've looked at, considered, but I agree. And that's actually my humble advice for anyone who's just starting to adopt or think about adopting playbooks and systems, is like, just use Google Docs. It's actually well built for that. Another thing that quickly comes to mind that I learned from someone else in my network is that he actually, with his team meetings, I think it was monthly, with his monthly check-ins, one of the KPIs they actually tracked was how many playbooks have you created or edited this month. So, and it wasn't to like point the gun and be like, did you do your playbooks? But it was like to remind people, like, this is a part of our business. Like, we're always going to evolve. We're always going to update things. So
and one thing you kind of mentioned there is a very powerful way to grow your systems and your processes out is, instead of you doing them all yourself, is tell other people to do it. You go in then and look at it to see if it actually look right. And then give it to somebody else to try to do it.
Oh yeah. So really triple check.
Yeah.
I like it. The triple check. Yeah. I've done some auditing, but I don't do as much of then throwing it at someone else and be like, now you
want everybody on earth to be able to follow a step-by-step. It's essentially you're designing a playbook that a robot could do.
That's the key.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Okay. Let's talk about challenges. So, and this can be a combination where, like, I will kind of presume that when we talk about, like, what are some challenges of coaching business, whether it's like doing the online side or just like coaching. I am a very humble student. I've done a bit of coaching with some of our MemberDev clients. I've done some of my own training through Conscious Leadership Group, who are my mentors, and I love it. What I've found, though, is that it's a different thing. The type of coaching I've done, for example, lots of human emotion. So like I can incur these really heavy things mentally. And that's fine. I knew that getting into it. Whereas like there's other like tactical I've had business coaches, they're like, boom, 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 this is what you need to go do. And it wasn't as much emotional. It's like, oh shoot, like I've got all these things to do. So you all, I imagine, because you're working with business owners, probably have a combination, because you've got people who are like financially motivated or entrepreneurial, but then you've also got people who are like, this isn't working, I'm stressed, you know what I'm saying? So I'm curious, one, of what you think some of the key challenges are of running a coaching business, and then that will probably allude to like tips and tactics that you guys have
so
found.
there's two sides, and we actually broke our company. Me and Kirsty, our business partners, we had to break our company, me leading one side, her leading the other side. So the coaching and the fulfillment of the coaching is led by me now. The sales and marketing and bringing people in is led by her now. And we used to kind of just cross over and kind of try to figure them both out. But we found that we would not like certain parts of that, and then really just kind of let things, we just kick the can further down the road on a lot of stuff. So we separated our roles, and we've grown both of them really, really well. So on the sales and marketing side, the biggest issue and challenge of running a coaching business is understanding how to find the people you're looking for. You first have to know who you're looking for, know their problems, know their issues, know their solutions, all that stuff. That's inherent. You can't be a coach if you don't know how to solve people's problems. That's period.
Right.
Once you know that, you then have to be able to go find them. And that took us a while. Like, we kind of got lucky to start. Like, we didn't really know what the hell we were doing. And people just seemed kind of attracted to what we were doing because they just liked how we talked. But we didn't get in front of a lot of people at once. So we would just get like in front of 100 people, and 20 people would be like, hey, I'm game. Let's go. Let's work together. It's like, that's a high conversion rate. Like, that's
right.
Like, that doesn't happen for most people. But then we got better at like going out, playing the bigger scale game, figuring that stuff out. So that in itself was a huge challenge. That took us about 5 years to really figure that out. And that's when we were able to scale it to more of an evergreen model, because we could figure out where we were getting the people from.
Gotcha.
So sales and marketing side, it's always finding the people online, in real life, wherever, conferences, wherever you can find them.
And was that just done through you and Kirsty just experimenting, just with different channels, different? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we did, well, I'll give you three things that we kind of did was we hired some people to help us with Facebook and marketing, and it kind of worked, but it didn't really work until we went to a bit more of a high touch email strategy, where we just told people to email us after they would do something. So that way we could then start a conversation. So this high touch thing, and most people don't want to sit there and answer emails all day. So then obviously Kirsty's leading that side. So she's like, okay, well, we need some help here. We got other people that can help answer emails and do that stuff as well. But that's what it took. It took high touch. And that's what we were doing before. That's why our conversion was so high. It's because we were in front of people. We could talk to them. And then we tried to do that anonymity thing where you go scale it out and like, it's not about us, it's about them. And that's true. It is. But at the same time, people still want to see you, hear you, talk to you, get their version of the story to you, and then have somebody give them advice back. And that's all going to happen for free at the start. It's like that consultation, but then you still have to give them that offer. So then that's where you say, hey, you know what, we can continue this long-term, and you can be even more successful, and we can help you through this whole process. Right. And once we shifted to that, you know, is a huge difference. I always say, and this will never, ever die. The companies that care more about their clients and their customers than they do about money will usually be the most successful ones. And that's a blanket statement that I can carry till I'm 100 years old and dead, or as my best friend says, he says, I'm going to die at 40. So in a couple of months from now, but that phrase, that line, that however you want to take it, it's been the same for 200 years. It'll be the same for the next 500 years and beyond. If you care more about the customers than the money, you will make more money than most people. Right. It'll naturally figure things out. And exactly. So that was our whole strategy. And then on the coaching side, we just then had to fulfill that. And the best part is we actually do care. I always tell every client that I speak to about this, every one of our team members, I tell them their results are our results. Meaning if they don't get results, we don't get results. If they all fail, we fail as a company. So our job is to help them succeed. We don't get commission from anything. We just get a consultation fee, essentially whatever it is per month for a consultation fee. They could stop selling on Amazon and not pay us and all that stuff. That doesn't help us financially, but then what's going to happen is they're going to say, oh, this program doesn't work. And that's going to go to another person. That's going to go to another person.
Right.
And finally, enough people are going to be like, well, this program doesn't work, so nobody's going to work with us. If they keep getting results, literally life-changing results, or even small, just mental like results, that helps them understand that, you know what, this is going to work for me. It's probably going to work for people like me and others that I know who can actually do this as well. I literally just had a conversation with a client right before I got on this call. And she said, the first thing she said, I just first wanted, before we get into it, I just want to thank you. This is the best program I've ever found. And I've spent a lot of money on programs.
Beautiful.
And if we don't get things like that validation, we don't need it for ourselves. We need it for them, because then they're going to tell other people. Coaching is literally a result, no matter what you're in, physical fitness, whatever, anything, therapy, dental consultation. I don't care what it is. It's a result-based business. And if all you think about is bringing in more and more people so you can make more and more money, you will find out very quickly, you will not be successful in a couple of years. Like that word of mouth will get out and be like, you know, it's just like an Amazon listing. You'll get bad reviews, word of mouth, whatever it is. Nobody in that circle of people will want to work with you. So you have to have a high value for the customer satisfaction, but not only satisfaction, results. Yep.
That's what I'm hearing. It's also the pressure, right? It's like, as a coach, that's the pressure. It's like, because I'll speak from my own experience, is that you start to create a little attachment to that. And you want your students, your coachees to succeed. And then you carry that pressure. And to your point, the most successful coaches have just proven. It's not to say that you're going to change everyone's life or make everyone, super successful. But I think what I want to emphasize that I'm hearing is like focusing on them, not just sales and revenue, because obviously they are related, but they're different things. And then making sure you're producing results. There's also a piece of this that as a coach, you kind of have to still be in the game in a way. It doesn't mean you need to like run a full scale Amazon business, but you need to know the trends. And because that's where I get caught off guard and even today as a technologist, sometimes I don't do nearly as much coaching there, but I do a lot of strategy and guidance for people. Like, this is the system, or this is the tool, or this is the API integration. And I find myself at times being like, whoa, I need to study up again, because technology is changing. And I want to make sure that like I am giving, because it all goes back to what you said, is that if you give shit results, or if someone like just conks out, it only takes a few, this didn't work, I don't know if I trust those guys. And next thing you know, it snowballs, and that can be bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the idea, like, it always cracked me up, because I used to see personal trainers that were out of shape.
Yes.
Like, why would I take advice from you and go to the gym and have somebody who's out of shape tell me how to get in shape? Like, that just doesn't make sense. Like, it's like
same thoughts.
Even football coaches, like half the football coaches are just fat guys. They used to be good at football, but like at least keep yourself in some level of condition, right? I mean, it's like, it makes no sense to me. Like, I get it. Like, it's not all a physical thing in football. It's a lot of mental, but personal training and personal fitness, it's purely physical, right? Like, so if you're an out of shape personal trainer, your first probable thing to get more clients is get yourself in shape.
Yep.
Because that's going to be a true indication that you know what the hell you're talking about. Because if you're just lazy and out of shape, they're going to be like, well, if you know so much, why don't you get in shape yourself? And then if you just have excuses, what are they going to do? They're going to make excuses when they don't get in shape. Therefore, you'll have bad results. Therefore, you'll have nobody working with you.
Good point. So all the trainers out there, get your ass in shape.
Yep.
If you want more business. That's the lesson here.
Yeah.
Quick turn. What I wanted to talk about before we talk a little bit about Amazon is, and this isn't a plug, even though it's going to sound like it with the way that I asked this question. It's actually how we came to know each other. And that's why I had such a pleasant experience working with you. You were one of our earliest platform customers. You're still one of our longest platform customers. And what I'm curious about, it doesn't necessarily need to be focused on MemberDev, but because we are your platform for running the online side of your business, I'm curious about what you can share with the audience. Like, how does having an online platform aid in whether it's the systems process, whether it's the operations, or even whether it's just like if content is a big part of your model? Because that's the other thing that we get a lot of questions about, and this is where people get a little confused or just they freeze in the beginning stages. Like, well, if I want to be a coach and I want to move all this online, like, what do I need? That's one of the biggest questions I get. What do I need? Do I have to have a full library? Do I have to have courses? Do I do consultations? And I think that answer is very dependent and dynamic based on who you are as a coach.
Yep.
But I'd be curious to know, since you guys are years in now, like, what has been your relationship and the utility of having like an online platform like MemberDev?
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of I'm going to try to answer this a very systematic way because in my brain, it makes sense to do it this way. So the first thing I want to distinguish is the difference between coaching and teaching. And this will make sense in a second. So coaching is when you actually help somebody achieve an action, like a set of actions to improve them at something. Training or teaching is literally just spilling information out to somebody. Like it could just be out to anywhere, the universe, online, Google, it could be in person. You could be doing a lecture.
Like DIY, right?
That's all teaching. And then they got to go out and figure out themselves.
Yeah.
Coaching is much more personal and intimate. So you can have a library of training videos, which we do, but then you still have to supplement that with actual personal advice along the way. Gotcha. So when they have an issue, you help them. So that's coaching, helping them get through their journey to improve themselves in some way.
Right.
Teaching is just offering that information and nothing else really.
Great.
So there are a lot of people that call themselves coaches that do that. They just offer training, but they call themselves coaches when they're not. They're teachers. So a big distinction there. So if you truly are a coach and you're going to offer some sort of interpersonal communication with these people, having an online platform like MemberDev was the exact reason why we came to Ali and said, I need to be able to build this out. Like we've looked at Kajabi, we've looked at all this other stuff. We looked at a custom platform. Nothing seems to be the way that we want it. And so I just said, Ali, what do you think we can do here? Like, I want this and this and this. And he looked at it and goes, all right, like this is different than it's not our custom model. Cause like it's kind of within our standard template, but we got to bolt on some things.
Right.
So it's kind of a hybrid model. And we did that. And we've put more and like we've added more things into it as we've gone. Now we've got like a client dashboard where we can add notes about each of our clients and all this other stuff. And that's a really cool feature that we still have yet to utilize to its fullest yet. But there's so many things there that as you're coaching somebody, you need them to go through a process. With a platform like MemberDev, you create that process. You have a starting point, get them onboarded, get them understanding what they're supposed to expect, give them very clear expectations of what their journey is going to entail, and let them kind of navigate some of it on their own, but then also supplement that by helping them when they get stuck. And like, if they get confused or don't know what they're doing, then you probably want to look at whatever they're doing and looking at and saying, is there a better way to make that thing work? So is that training video off because nobody understands what we're trying to say there? Is this going wrong? So for example, we just talked about the personal trainer. If your money that you ever make is only based on personal sessions that you do one-to-one with people in a gym or at their homes or in, a shared space or whatever, you only get paid for the time that you work.
Right.
That's it. If you have an online platform like MemberDevs can build out for you, you can actually create the training video, give weekly coaching calls to people to kind of inspire them, motivate them, give them diet tricks or diet tips and nutrition things, and give them a meal plan or whatever. You can actually do this with a group of people. And, you'll say, okay, so some of you guys are in this kind of metabolism with this body shape here. Some of you guys are in this one and this one and this one. And here's the kind of meal plan I would suggest for each of you. Now you'll have various calories or whatever, and just adjust it to what I've already explained to you. Because what you want to do is have at least one personal call with them, probably a month or something like that. Depends, but so that way you can kind of catch up with them and kind of update their numbers. But then you can have weekly calls as a group. You can also have weekly training sessions or daily training sessions as a group. So instead of doing one session for $45, you can do one session with 20 people where they only pay $20 each. They save money. And now you've just tenfolded your actual ability to make money.
One to many. Yep. I was just talking about this actually with one of our newest clients. And this is a topic that I feel like it just needs more attention because it comes up a lot in our sales process with coaches. And I'm just like, you have to learn. And I'm not trying to be prescriptive, but I'm just like sharing, like you are like, there's a point where you learn how to do the one to many, and this unlocks so many things. It buys your time back. So what I heard there was MemberDev is really essential for a lot of the teaching component, because you have this DIY vehicle, be like, go, like the system's there. We've designed it for you. We put special things in place.
Business resources, SOPs, all that stuff. It's like all the business technical stuff
in there.
And all the coaching fills in the other stuff.
So coach it, but this is the other piece I was going to say that's important for people to tune into, is like you, as a coach, as Isaac said, you can't just be like, it's all there, go. You still have to supplement, right? There's still a human component, even if it's a quick call, or like we were talking about, when you can start to leverage the one to many and then really up the price for your one-on-one time, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And if you think about all the training, all the classes you ever had, every college course or whatever you've ever took, it doesn't fit everybody. Like the trainer, the teacher, the person's not going to change their model too much, because it's just the way that they know how to train or teach. But what they want to try to do is capture as many people's attention and make them understand it by simplifying it or whatever, but it's still not going to get everybody. So if you just relied on training and teaching and videos or text or whatever, there's going to be a significant amount of people that just don't move forward with that. So that's when you have to be like, hey, scoop them back up and say, hey, what's not working here? How can we help you? And for the people who get it and fire off, you still want to be like, hold on, maybe you're going a little too fast. You might actually be making some mistakes by going too hastily. So there's kind of like a human element to everybody, where some people get it, some people don't. Whatever it is, it just needs to be explained to them in a different way. Some people learn better by doing the thing. Some people learn better by reading, some people by hearing, whatever. But you got to give them as many opportunities to understand this as possible. And if they fail, it's a failure of yours.
Right.
To be honest with you.
You inherit it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And that goes back to our last point.
Yeah.
What I want to do, just in the spirit of time, is let's not talk about Amazon unless you're really inspired to talk about Amazon. The reason is that now that I think about it, I was just more curious about that question. Whereas I don't think that many MemberDev
now you're gonna have to ask the question, so that way they at least can hear what the question is.
Yeah. So the question was, how much power does Amazon have? And now you have to answer it in a few minutes. So because you've been so embedded in that world, how much?
I'll give you a one-liner. They own the world.
I know. It's ridiculous. I was at a conference,
and soon to be outer space,
4 years ago, and this was a small business e-commerce conference, and 4 of the lead panelists had like e-commerce businesses all around 10 million or so, which is why they were asked to do a quick fireside chat. And like they were poked to be like, do you need to be on Amazon? And every single one of them was like, I wish I didn't. But at some point they're like, it's economies of scale. Like you can play that game and try to stay off of it. And in some niches, you can totally do it if you're really, really like unique. But most of them had a consensus that like, if you're selling products online and you truly want to quote unquote scale and like sell in masses, like you kind of have to figure it out. Do you agree with that? I mean,
there are people that do sales funnels off Amazon through Facebook and Google and all that stuff. And that is a skill set that takes years to master, lots of money to waste, and a lot of time, blood, sweat, tears, all that stuff. That's different. And let me just put it this way. Amazon gets 2 billion visitors to Amazon.com. Now there's not 2 billion people in the United States, but multiple people going multiple times. So 2 billion daily unique visitors in the course of a month. And how many visits does your website get?
Right. Right. There it is.
100, 300 maybe. Yeah. And you could try your ass off and maybe get to 1,000 or 3,000, but your conversion rate on your website is also going to be 1 to 3%. Whereas on Amazon, you can do 20% conversion easily, because they're willing to shop and already want to buy, and their credit card's already stored in the system.
That's true. They've done all the hard work. You just have to get visibility.
Yep.
Okay. So,
and then the other thing is that the other part that they don't tell you about is that all the servers that Amazon has pretty much runs every major website in the world.
Right. I was just going to say, aside from what people know Amazon for, they actually have their hands in all these other things, which is why
logistics,
your
servers.
Your comment about them taking over the world, it's hard to argue. Okay. We're going to wrap here with a couple last questions. The first one is, I said, what do you enjoy or dislike about running a technology business? I feel like I wrote that because I wanted to just hear it. And maybe this is helpful for other people. Maybe it's therapeutic because there's some days where I wake up and I'm like, man, I'm tired of being on this computer. So I'm curious, like, to tee that up, I feel like we have a lot of luxuries, first world luxuries running technology businesses. Would you agree?
Oh yeah.
So what are the things that you enjoy or don't enjoy that give or drain energy?
Well, the first thing, and I'm kind of a person who grew up doing manual labor and like that. Like, I was okay with that. But as you get older, it's like, you can't do that for very long, much longer. And you're like, Jesus, like my body's breaking down already and I don't even do manual labor anymore. But there are days when I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go exercise. I didn't used to have to exercise because I was always just in shape because I'd actually work. But now I'm like, I have to exercise and I'm okay with that. But basically you can set your own rules when you have a technology business.
Yep.
Now, Ali, you might say, I'm going to start at 9 a.m. I'm going to end at 5 p.m. I say, I start at 10 a.m. I do not start at my computer unless it's like a one-off thing where somebody has to do for time. I don't sit at my computer until 10 a.m. I have an entire morning that I plan out. I exercise. I make breakfast for me and my wife. We obviously now have a child who we spend time with in the morning. He's a pain in the ass, obviously, because they're little kids. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the morning that I say, I can't sacrifice that. This is, if I don't do this in the morning, the rest of my day is no good.
Mm-hmm.
So that before 10 a.m. and it sounds very Trumpy because he's like, oh, I don't do anything before 10 a.m. yet he's on Twitter, like talking about Fox News or whatever it is, the president. It's like, Jesus, like go actually do some work. But then I also set time limits for everything I do. So whereas before, if you worked at an office, you don't have limits. You could just get paid for 8 hours, 10 hours a day, whatever salary position. You don't have time limits. So you're actually wasting time all the time. If you actually just sat down and said, how much actual work do I do in a day? If you're in an office scenario, I bet it's only 2 hours. And I mean that sincerely, because if you actually took what you did, other than like sitting in meetings that didn't do anything, talking to people that was pointless, if you could just wrap all that stuff up, put it in an email or get into a doc and seamlessly make these things happen, you would probably have 2 to 3 hours worth of work a day. So that's what I do. I say, I basically work from 10 a.m. and I try to stop around 2 or 3 p.m. So 4 to 5 hours of work a day. Now, other days I might work more. Some days I might work less, but on average, I'm working 4 to 5 hours a day, 3 to 4, sometimes 3. And I also get my life back around that. And I just do it in the middle of my day because that's when none of my friends are available to hang out. Like there's nothing really happening. It's daytime TV. Like I really don't care. It's not like I watch TV that much anyway, but like nothing's happening in that time anyway. So I just say, I'm here right now. I close the door, tell my wife, hey, I want to be in the office for this long and don't disturb me. I'll let you know when I'm done. And if you don't do that, you get sidetracked, you get all this other stuff, all the same office stuff again. You end up spending 8 to 10 hours to do 3 to 4 hours worth of work. So that's a really good thing. I mean, that's one of the things about a technology-based business that I like. The other part is that your impact can be scaled. And what I mean by that is I don't just go to an office and talk to 5, 6 people around me. I literally talk to people in Singapore, Thailand, Canada, UK, Mexico, Australia, US, all over the US, wherever. And I can speak to them, help them grow a business on the same platform that I'm doing it on, whether it be US or UK or whatever, and change their lives for the better. So I can't do that if I'm sitting in an office building and I don't have technology. I can't call up people on the phone and explain this to them over a phone call.
Very true.
I can now build out a platform online and do a voice call or Zoom call or something like that through a conference like this and physically get them over their hurdles. That impact is what drives me and our coaches and Kirsty and myself every single day. Because we always say that, well, my favorite quote, I attribute it to myself because I've never heard anybody else say it. But it's because you always hear like, you know, you can't take money with you. Like no matter how much money, you still end up in a coffin or whatever. Yep. I always say, I don't want to be the guy with the most money in the cemetery. I want to be the guy with the best stories in the nursing home.
Totally. I like that, man. So yeah, what I heard was freedom and impact at scale, which is so true. Like it's the fact that you can design your schedule. I also design my schedule. And when I at the last mastermind event I was at, when we did core values, you had to run through 150 core values. I actually, in my top 3, that was the hard part, was narrowing it down to the top 3. Freedom was one of them. And I think that is a huge thing that may be obvious to some people, but you don't actually feel it and appreciate it till you use it, which is exactly what you're doing. Is saying,
if I had to go back to a job, I would be
same thing. I would never, I tell people that all the time, especially my wife. I'm like, I will never work for someone else again. And like, unless, something drastic
catastrophic happens. Yeah.
It's for the freedom. What are the things that you don't like? Can you think of it?
I think most of it is sitting.
Yeah.
Like too much sitting. Like you don't get any movement.
Too many Zoom calls, right? Too many Zoom calls.
Sore neck and stuff. It's literally mostly the physical stuff because I mean, I've liked computers since I was a kid. Like literally I took typing classes, took programming classes, like rudimentary, like I'm talking like how to create like a moving ball across the screen kind of programming and stuff like that. But I was always interested and fascinated with that. So I don't have an issue with computers or technology in that sense. It's the fact that you can't do it as easily as you want to. That's why I've got this standing desk, because I'll sit for some stuff and then I have to stand up. Yep. But even so, like you're kind of fixed in a position, right? Like you can't walk around, you're not lifting anything up, you're not bending or anything like that. But that's kind of again, it's like first world problem, complaining about something that most people would love to have. So, but yeah, I mean, there's not too many downsides. I mean, if I really thought about it, I could probably think of a few more. I think like personal connection, like one of my favorite things to do is just like have a beer with one of my clients and hang out. Like we don't even have to talk about anything, just like hang out. You can't really do that over technology. And for a lot of people who, I don't want to say they lack personality, but maybe they lack a charisma that can carry across technology, that can be a lot harder. So like you might be more like friendly in person, but when you talk and it's like public speaking. Nobody likes to public speak. I don't mind it, but once you get in front of people, then everybody freezes up. Totally. So if you can't translate your emotion or your charisma or whatever you want to call it through technology, it makes it a lot harder. Fortunately, me and Kirsty both, that's kind of one of our things, is we're just down to earth people. We don't care. Like if we say something stupid, we look like idiots. It's not going to affect our day. We just want to be the people that are there to help. So
yeah, I feel that, man. I've always felt that from you. I feel that as we're recording this case study, is that you are committed to that. So I appreciate it, because not everybody is. A lot of people are in sales mode and they're always pitching something. Whereas like you brought a lot of good things to the table here.
I just get excited about random things.
You do. I feel it. I feel the energy. Well, let's wrap on the personal questions. So the first one is that tell us about being a new father. How old is your son?
He is about to be 7 months old in 6 days. So yeah.
Oh man, that's the best. Well, no, that's not the best. For me, the best keeps evolving because my kids are 5 and 3 now. But I said that because at 6 months, I had a lot of fun with my children, because like they're starting to really develop. They're smiling, like they're doing the things where they don't feel like these little creatures you have to constantly react to. Yeah. How has it changed? This is one of my favorite questions. Like for me, not only did life drastically change when my first son, and even when my daughter came along, but it like I had to open up a new chapter. But I also think that there was like things had to change. A lot of it was not voluntary, whereas now it's becoming more voluntary with like lifestyle design. But I'm curious from your perspective, because you're 7 months in now, has there been huge shifts already?
Well, so I'm 39 and I just had my first kid, which a lot of people have their first kids way younger than that. So I had the one added benefit that I had done a lot of stuff that I wanted to do before I had a kid.
Got it.
So I'm also very set in my schedule, and I schedule things out very systematically, religiously, I guess. But if I didn't have that, things would be absolutely catastrophic. Like even knowing all that stuff and then having a newborn come home, the pregnancy was like whatever for me. It was like almost like no change. But once this little thing comes home and it's screaming at different times of the day, it's like, all right, time is becoming more valuable by the minute, because like absolutely I have to then go over here and now I've got 30 minutes instead of an hour or whatever. It's like things happen. Now we're kind of settling a little bit more. Obviously the first month was chaos a little bit, Where it was like, man, my 3 to 4, 5 hours a day was more like 1 hour a day. And I was like lagging behind on a lot of stuff. I would say the biggest thing is that your availability changes and then your time pressure changes. So you have to either get better at systemizing your time or essentially getting somebody to help with that. And my wife was planning to go back to work and she did for a month. And she's like, no way, this is pointless. Like, cause she also worked from home at the time. And she was like, I can't do both. Like she was staying up till like midnight to try to get her work done. I was like, this is dumb. Like, like stop doing what you're doing. This is pointless. Cause we would have paid more in like childcare just to have her work than we would if she just stopped working. So it was like, no point. But the good things are that, you get to see this thing that you get to be able to teach a lot. You get to impact this thing that goes out into the world and changes everybody, right? And whoever they meet. Now, I'm not saying like you have the next Mahatma Gandhi on your hands necessarily, but what you have is the ability to mold a human being that can go out and positively impact the people that they meet. And that's a huge, probably the only main reason that I wanted to have a child in the first place was so that way I could carry on that concept to something that, is in my blood. I can do that across, the internet to other people and impact them. But if they don't turn around and have any strong connection to me, they probably won't regenerate that to other people. Whereas if I instill that in somebody from very young age, they'd be more likely to do that as well.
Totally, man. That's beautiful. And you've already spoken to this last point, which I'll blend, but and you can take it maybe to team culture or just personal, because you've already talked a little bit about how you manage work-life balance. Your schedule is awesome, but I think that's a great place to end. And I'm always curious about different businesses, especially because your business is is 100% remote, right?
Yeah.
How do you and Kirsty manage both personal or just the culture around like work and life? Do you? Some people don't. They say, hey, it all just blends, it's integrated. What's your philosophy on that?
So we probably don't have a full statement about it. It's more about just the type of people we are. But essentially, at no point do we ever value the business and money over the people we work with or our clients. If like somebody's like, hey, you know what? I literally am in a financial jam. I can't make the payments. Obviously, we're going to step in. We're going to help them. We're going to do something to work with them. If we have a coach that's like, something's come up, I'm unavailable for a week. We work with them. Like it's life is life. You can't change what happens in life.
Right.
You can only change how you react to it and how you accept those things. So essentially our culture, and you can get frustrated with people and it turns into arguments sometimes, but in the end, that you're doing it because you want the best from them. They want the best from you. You respect what they're doing. You don't want just yes people either, right? So you need somebody to kind of challenge you and find people that do that. But at the same time, it's never going to kind of crumble a relationship or anything like that. You need to find people that have the ability and the backbone to stand up to you, to help you, and vice versa, have the backbone to take your criticism and advice and constructive feedback and move forward with it, even if it doesn't come off as positive at first. But the team culture should always be, respect each other, that you come first. The business is the thing that drives our livelihoods. So we can't neglect it. But at the same time, if the culture is just sell, grow, money, nobody's going to want to work for you.
Right.
Nobody's going to like that mentality. The only singular motivation would be them making a paycheck. And if you've ever watched Mad Men, it's not a great line, but it's a memorable line, is Peggy, who's the secretary that becomes one of the ad people, the sales people. She goes over to Don Draper, who's like this super successful marketing guy. And he's kind of like bringing her up on the journey. He's kind of like her apprentice, or his apprentice. And she says, I'm working all these hours. I don't get any respect. You treat me like trash. You never give me any extra like benefits, like all these other guys who are less talented than me. And he just turns around and goes, that's what the money's for, Peg. That's what the money's for. And I was like, damn, if my boss ever said that to me, I would just be gone.
Yeah.
Like, hell no, bro. Like that's over. If that was the only singular focus of your business or your career was money, you're doing that thing for the wrong reason.
I agree, man. I heard people first. That's what I just felt
Yeah,
from you, is that you guys focus on people first. And I think that's huge because it is easy to get lost in I call them status games of
yeah,
money, status, material. And when I was younger, I was financially inspired a lot more. Whereas now, like putting people first, which this has been a nice consistent theme through this call with you, is that you put the clients first, you put the team members first, etc. And being remote, then do you give, like, there's things that need to be done. I assume you guys have areas of ownership on your team, but
for sure.
do you give people sort of flexibility to kind of design, like, hey, work when you
Absolutely.
work? There is no like 9 to 5 check in, check out.
And that's the other thing is there's an evolution in technological businesses where you, as the person who did it 3 years ago, might not be the best at it anymore. So hire somebody who can evolve through that role for sure. Have a very specific role attached to a person. Don't let them like go outside that role, but give them the ability to evolve that role however they see fit.
Right.
And that's the way that team member is really going to see personal attachment to your business, is that they can grow this thing, especially in a technology business, that they can have a certain part of ownership there.
Totally. What else, man? Anything left unsaid?
2 pieces.
Go.
Real quick. Get a vision for yourself. You and your business. If you don't set a vision for what you want that thing to be when it's successful, you'll never hit that success. Success is completely defined by whatever you think success is. So it's not like having $1 million in a yacht. That's success for maybe somebody, but for you, it's probably not. Most people here, sure, you'd like $1 million. Sure, you might like a yacht, but if you didn't have those things and you had a very happy life, wouldn't you consider that to be successful? So design and write out exactly what you want and do it in a 3-year period. So 3 years from today, here's what my business will be when it's successful. We call this a vivid vision. The person who we got it from, his name is Cameron Herold. You go read anything by Cameron Herold. It's great. Focus on the vivid vision. Write yourself out a vivid vision. Once you do that, you know what your goal is. Here's what you're going to do when you're successful. Okay. That's number 1. Number 2, don't chase money. This comes from Tony Hsieh, who is passed away now. He actually died he died from complications of a home fire. He was the founder and co-founder, or the CEO of Zappos.
I was going to say Zappos, yeah.
Yep. So he just passed away. I think it was like last October or something like that. So recently, his one quote that I'll always say is he says, "Don't chase the money, chase the vision." Or he says, no, sorry, it's a little bit different. It's chase the vision, not the money. The money will end up following you, or something like that. A little paraphrase there, but basically the idea here is if you know what your vision is, you will be so inherently like geared towards achieving that you will do that even if you don't get paid.
Right.
When you don't get paid, that means when you get paid, you'll be so incredibly grateful that you get paid to do it, that you will be so much more willing to keep doing that and actually achieve that success. You think about every basketball player, every football player, every musician that ever played, they probably didn't get paid for 10 years to do that thing. Could you imagine doing your favorite thing in the world for 10 years and not getting paid? That'd be tough. But if you can persevere for even a few of those years, find little ways to make some money to actually achieve that vision, and then in the end, you can make millions of dollars. I mean, Nickelback wasn't the best band ever. They were just perseverant, right? They could just persevere, and they probably didn't make much money. You know, they still had to play those same crappy songs in their garage when they were in high school or whatever, right?
Nickelback gets so much hate, don't they? They're just like the most trashed band of all time. But
the point is that everybody consensusly thinks that they're terrible, but they sold millions of albums. They got very successful, right? But they were perseverant. Like they just kept doing that thing regardless of if they got paid, just like every athlete, just like everybody who's ever made it as an entrepreneur. They probably didn't make money for a year, maybe 2 years, but they kept at it. They kept doing that thing and probably had to work a side job or whatever, something they hated to achieve their passion. And once that thing worked, then everybody goes, "Oh, well, how'd you do that? That was quick. Like you started making so much money so fast." "Oh yeah, but you didn't see the 3 years that I had to do like of no payment." And you were saying like, "Why are you even wasting your time with that?" Like that's all the people that come out of the woodwork after you're successful. Fortunately, if you don't surround yourself with people like that, you don't have to answer questions like that. people just ever ask me like, what is it you do again? And I just say, oh, I sell on Amazon.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Whittle it down. No, I think that's great, man. I think that's beautiful advice is that because it's so counterintuitive, especially young aspiring entrepreneurs think they need like these huge ideas and then they try to put like business plans together. And to your point, it's like chasing the money is definitely not, it usually isn't the right path. So
you'll do anything for money. I mean, I hate to bring this up, but I mean, prostitution is literally what happens when you'll do anything for money.
True. Yeah.
Right.
That's a good,
I mean, if you just need money, go get a job. If you need money, go get a job. They pay you every 2 weeks. If you want freedom, if you want your own vision, if you want your own impact in the world, go start a business or do something that you can do, be a volunteer, whatever, and understand that for a while, you're probably not going to make anywhere near the money you want from that endeavor. But if you persevere, you can have massive rewards for doing it.
Definitely. Well said, man. Well, thank you. It was an honor to have this, there's a lot of gold in here. So thank you for jumping on and creating value.
Yeah. And if anybody obviously has any questions about this stuff, they can reach me and you can give them my contact information at the bottom of this or whatever if they want to contact you. I have no problem just helping people, like just inspire them a little bit. So yeah.
I love it. We might actually do that. Yeah. GoTeamMeal.com is where you originally market everything, but just speaking with you today, it helped me understand that there's a lot outside of the niche you're in that you could help young entrepreneurs with. So we might just
do personal development is a huge belief in my life.
Love it, man. Okay. Well, we'll wrap. Thank you again, Isaac.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Definitely.